Hey, what's up everyone? Today we're diving into the Finalmouse ULX Lion. I copped this from the second batch in December for around 180 euros, and to my surprise it arrived in January already. Unlike the first batch that had some people waiting 4 to 5 months, I luckily got this one pretty early. So let's get into it. No sponsored video or anything like that, just my raw thoughts after 2 months of using this mouse and putting it through its paces. Alright, let's talk about fit. I went for the Lion, the medium shape, which I know from previous Finalmouse fits me best. The Tiger and the R58 are too beefy for me personally, and don't get me started on the Cheetah or Cape Town. It's tiny, it's way too small for me. But hey, if you rocked the Finalmouse before, you already know the shapes and that they haven't changed much. So if you liked the medium before, you will definitely like the ULX. And if the medium felt cramped for you, then you get a new decision to make because they just dropped the Tiger. And if you're new to Finalmouse shapes, heads up, it's really flat. So if you're used to palm support, this might not be your thing. I'm a claw grip person, but with this I end up doing some weird fingertip curl thing, so just keep that in mind. Talking about the aesthetics next up, this mouse is available in the Guardian and Phantom edition. Guardian has metallic, golden accents to it, and the Phantom has this really nice shiny metallic blue, which I'm a huge fan of. Also I like that due to the carbon composite, the mouse looks really premium and it seems to absorb light way more, so you are likely going to see way less reflections than on your casual black gaming mouse. However, if you are super nitpicky and take a real close look at the material, you might be able to tell that there are some imperfections like super small dents or lines in the material, especially on mouse 1 and mouse 2 where the switches are. I personally really like that this isn't another magnesium mouse, so it doesn't take a certain time to warm up, which I really like. However, the material, I gotta say, feels very unusual to your typical plastic mouse, and I would say it almost feels cheap. Also, I would go as far as saying that this mouse is unusable without any sort of grip tape, as the material has no real texture to it. And speaking of grip tape, Finalmouse provides grip tape for the sides. However, after using it with the provided grip tape, I can say that it's rather a gimmick to cover up the holes than providing any sort of grip, as it gets pretty slippery once your hand starts sweating. What I really like, however, is that the lines that you can see on mouse 1 and mouse 2 aren't noticeable when you hover over with your fingers, which I think is great, especially because there seems to be a lot of people that dislike the inconsistent feel or humps they could potentially encounter with a design like this. But what you still get are these cheese grater holes in the back hump. And on the sides, but I personally covered them up with the grip tape they provided, and I have to say this grip tape is really bad. Let's take a close look at the build quality now, which seemed to be one of the many concerns people had with the batch 1 copy of the ULX. My copy overall feels pretty sturdy and I don't have any side flags. Also the back hump only has some minor flags, which seem to be a big concern for a lot of batch 1 copies. However, I really wonder who puts so much selectively pressure on their mouse during a gaming session. Like, what's the point of these extreme grip tests? It's just stupid in my opinion. But I still tested it, and the only points of flex that can cause some creaking sounds on my copy is first of all the back hump, which seems to have a small gap, and the bigger issue below mouse 1 and mouse 2 close to the side buttons. These edges flex pretty heavily, but again, I don't see any reason why someone would put pressure at these points at any time. The only place where I could see potential issues is the before mentioned flex below mouse button 1 and mouse button 2. However, which one is more concerning is mouse button 1 because the side buttons are really close to it. If these edges start bending or warping over time, which we really don't know with the material like this, they could start touching the rear side button and could cause some friction, which could be really unfortunate, especially for a price point like this. The main clicks on my copy feel fantastic, offering a light and responsive feel with no noticeable post or pre-travel, making them great for spam clicking. However, they are missing some tactility, and pressing down heavy on mouse button 1 revealed some flex in the carbon fiber, which can be a bit distracting and create a weird feel, almost like someone put Cheetos in there. Additionally, I also noticed some switch grind, particularly when applying more pressure, which leads to a somewhat cheap sensation in my opinion. The mouse wheel unfortunately also feels really subpar, and with a heavy initial force and harsh steps and an unpleasantly loud sound, which is really unexpected at such a high price point. Comparatively, the mouse lacks the smoothness of older versions, like the Cape Down for example. Nonetheless, the mouse wheel clicks themselves are satisfying, tactile and very responsive. Moving on to the side buttons, Finalmouse nails it with crisp and clicky buttons that have no noticeable post or pre-travel, and I would say these are easily a 10 out of 10. And if you were wondering where the DPI button went, they completely removed it, which leaves us with just a simple on and off switch at the bottom. And while we're taking a look at the bottom, the default skates work well out of box, eliminating the need for immediate replacements. However, they do cover up the screw holes if you plan to open it up. Sensor performance exceptional across all hertz levels, delivering smooth and flawless tracking and the performance you expect from a mouse in this price range. I didn't have any issues and it was a flawless experience. While currently being able to go up to 4000 Hz, they also plan on releasing 8000 Hz for this mouse with the out-of-box dongle in the future, which again a lot of companies should take as an industry standard. However, I view 8000 Hz currently more as a gimmick than a necessity, as it usually takes a lot of CPU power and has a huge hit on battery life. Speaking about battery life though, the ULX lasted 2 to 3 days on 4000 Hz, 4 to 5 days with 2000 Hz and 7 days on 1000 Hz. Let's get into one of the things I enjoy the most about this mouse, the web-based software. It is super easy to access. You just open your browser, open the Finalmouse website and open the XPanel. Inside the XPanel you can change all your settings on the go without the need of installing bloatware type of software like with Razer or Logitech products. I really hope that web-based software will be a new standard for all gaming mice and all gaming peripherals, so we don't end up with bloatware software like Razer or Logitech offers. The only downside with the web-based software is that you can't really change your DPI or any other settings on the fly without an internet connection. So if you travel a lot or something, keep that in mind. Let's take a look at the software now. You're just going to need to Google Finalmouse, go on their site, or click on XPanel right here, and this page is going to open. You have to press connect next. By the way, your mouse has to be connected via the dongle. It's going to ask you for permission. You just select the ULX dongle and press connect, and now you can see all your settings and what the current settings are, what the current firmware is, the dongle firmware and the dongle USB firmware. You can also see your battery life and a pretty cool drawing of the mouse. Then on the left side you can make your changes. You can see the different categories, for example DPI. You can choose between these steps, no custom steps. You can change the polling rate. Like I said, it goes up to 4000 Hz. I think a good middle ground is 2000 Hz, and the 8000 Hz currently under testing, but I guess it will be released soon. Next up, you can also change the lift-off distance. You can choose between 1 and 2 millimeters. I personally choose 2. Then we have motion sync. I personally would keep this off as it can introduce some latency and we don't want that. Then you can also change the dongle LED. Currently I have it set to battery level indication, so it will change to your battery level accordingly. That's why I have it set on green. I think it's the most useful. You can also change it to solid white, which is going to look like this. And obviously you can also turn it completely off if you don't like any RGB or LED or whatever. But like I said, I like the battery level indication, so I'm keeping it at that. And on the last tab you can see it's the firmware tab. You can see here is the firmware updater. You can update your mouse, the dongle USB and the dongle RF. But like you can see here, everything is up to date. and if you don't know how to update it, there's a tutorial right next to it. And for the last tab that we have down here, which you probably have seen already, the wireless signal strength, that already tells you what the perfect and the optimal distance is. So for example, if I move my dongle closer, it's obviously going to have the best signal strength, and if I put it away, somewhere like behind my camera, you can tell it gets worse, and the closer I get, it's getting better again. In conclusion, the ULX does a lot of things right in my opinion. You have 3 sizes to choose from and 2 designs, which I think look really good. While the build quality shows improvements from the previous batches, there are still minor concerns with material flex and creaking sounds in certain areas. However, its performance in terms of clicks and side buttons and overall sensor performance felt super smooth and responsive. The web-based software adds convenience, although the inability to adjust settings offline may be a drawback for some of you people. Overall, I really hope that Finalmouse continues to innovate the market and will come up with a perfected version at any time in the future, because what we are currently getting feels more like they're trying to push in too many directions at once, being the lightest, being the fastest, being the best. However, that can only be said about a few lucky copies so far. So if you have any additional questions or feel like I left out something, please let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed watching this video and want to see more in the future, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next one.